evening. This is our Tuesday, June 10th meeting of the Planning Commission, and we will start with our call to order.
Stiles.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Zaremski.
Here.
Osterholm.
Here.
And we are expecting Carmen Brown at any moment. Also present is Planning and Zoning Administrator Meg Leatherman, Solicitor Amy Blankenship, and Village Manager Johnny Burns somewhere.
Right behind you.
Okay. Reviewing the agenda, we were looking at it, and I know there's been some question about could we move the second one forward, and my understanding is we cannot because we tabled a motion the last time, and we have to take that up first. So unfortunately, they'll have to wait. Then review of the minutes. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Then we have our communications. We have a whole lot of communications. We have a letter from Chris Pfeiffer, objection to the Windsor PUD proposal. Don Clark, objections to the TGL request. Eric Clark, request to reopen East North College Street. Paul Abendroth, objections to Windsor PUD proposal. Aaron Rogers, objections to the Windsor PUD proposal. Jerry Papania, am I saying that correctly? Papania? Papania. Objections to the Windsor proposal. Kim Calusa, objections to the Windsor PUD proposal. Wendy DeLong, objection to the Windsor proposal. Christine Adair, objection to the Windsor proposal. Tim Conlon, request to eliminate light intrusion Windsor. Tom Degenhart, objection to the Windsor proposal. Ellis Jacobs, objection to the Windsor PUD proposal. Desiree Nickel, objections to the Windsor PUD proposal. Robert Pryor, objection to the Windsor PUD proposal. Samantha Eckenroe, support for the Windsor PUD proposal. Shelley Chestnut, support for the Windsor PUD proposal. Moria Laughlin, objection to the Windsor PUD proposal. Callie Carey Devine, support for the Windsor PUD proposal. Ellis Jacobs, his second letter of objection to the Windsor PUD proposal. And Kathy Adams, support for the Windsor PUD proposal. Okay, do we have a report from the Active Transportation Committee?
I don't have one this month, but I wanted to mention that I did complete the planning official training 2025 put on by the Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission of Greene County, Ohio, as Judy Kintner had circulated to us. And it was really quite good.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it covered a lot. It was sort of like, drinking from a fire hose. And I would recommend anybody else to take any other
Great.
training they offer in the future.
Thank you. Carmen, do we have a report from council?
We do. I'm pulling it up right now. I'm not pulling it up right now, but we do have one.
Damn it.
Here. I can't get up right now.
Okay. Then I guess we'll skip over that. Okay, now is the time when, and should I swear people in before the citizens' comments, the general? No. Okay.
Before the public hearing, you can
Okay.
swear everyone in.
Now is the time when people can make comments for things that are not on our agenda. So if you're here for one of the items, this isn't the time you speak. But if you have something you want to say, go ahead. We're going to allow everybody 2 minutes, And when you hear the little ding, whatever it is, sound, know that you need to finish quickly. So, no citizens' comments. Okay, then we will come to our first public hearing, and this is the preliminary development plan for plan unit development for Windsor Development. And so I make a motion to untable the application to rezone.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Then we'll go ahead and start, I think,
Susan, if you want to go ahead and make a motion to untable the
the other one.
preliminary development plan hearing as well.
Okay.
Let's just get those both back on the table.
Okay. I make a motion to untable the hearing for the preliminary development plan.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. And, okay, go ahead. I'm wondering if I ought to swear folks in now. Why don't we do that so I don't forget it? So, anybody who's going to be speaking about anything, either of the items, even maybe if you don't think you're going to speak, but maybe then at the last moment you're going to want to speak, go ahead and everybody stand up. And I need to swear you in. Let me find my sheet. Okay, everybody. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before the board?
I do.
Great, thank you. And so when you get up to speak, do say, "I did swear in," or "I affirmed," or whatever, so that we know that it's taken care of. Okay.
Yes, after.
Meg.
All right, thanks, yeah. Meg Leatherman, Planning and Economic Development Director, and I did swear in as well. As Susan mentioned, this is a preliminary development plan for a planned unit development. It's a first step in several, and also first public hearing. There will be several more public hearings coming after this tonight as well. The application was submitted by Windsor Companies. They're actually the applicant and the property owner of the property that we're speaking of tonight. They are here tonight and will address the commission after I give my overview. On May 13th, 2025, so last month, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the same application. After hearing from the public, Windsor Companies decided to reduce the number of units proposed in the development from 128 to 96. So due to that change, a public hearing was scheduled for tonight to give staff time to review the new unit count and public time to weigh in. The property contains 2.169 acres and is located at 275 East North College Street. It's presently zoned E1, and this request would change the zoning to PUD. The Planning Commission is the recommending body for this application, so the Village Council will actually review the same application and will make a final decision on this. So that would be another public hearing coming after tonight. Adjoining property owners were mailed a notice on May 15th. Signs were posted on the property on May 30th, and a notice was published in the Yellow Springs newspaper on May 30th, 2025. I prepared a staff report that outlines the applicable village code, which was provided to the commission this past Friday and also posted on our website, so June 6th. So I'm going to go over my staff report again, just to make sure it's all in the record and we're all on the same page. It is a lot of application material and content, so this will just be like a summary, but feel free to ask me any questions after I finish my review. The applicant proposes abating and then demolishing the old Antioch Student Union building to construct multifamily housing within two different structures for totaling 96 units. The PUD section of our code allows for deviations from certain dimensional standards as long as the applicant commits to certain amenities. The applicant has committed to these certain amenities and therefore requests 3 modifications to these dimensional standards. A modification to the off-street parking standard is one of them. With the new dwelling unit count, the total required off-street parking spaces is 192. because two spaces are required per dwelling unit. So the applicant is planning to provide 110 parking spaces. A height modification is also part of this request. The new height is 43 feet and 3 inches versus what was required is 35 feet, and a rear yard setback of 11 versus 15. In addition to the code allowance for deviations to dimensional standards, the code also allows a higher density if the applicant provides, again, certain amenities, and there's a list of various amenities they can select from, and they have selected some and committed to those. So the requested density is 44.26 dwelling units per acre. And the comparable density is for the RC zone for multifamily, and that density is allowed 14 dwelling units per acre. So it's 14 compared to 44.26. And then regarding open space, the applicant has provided a calculation showing that they're going to provide 29.81% of the lot will remain as open space. And then I have 4 recommended conditions of approval should the Planning Commission vote to approve the project. I can just highlight them, but there are detailed out in my staff report. One of the condition is for the applicant to provide a traffic impact study and then incorporate any identified implementation measures that come from that study. To dedicate 15% of the units as permanently affordable. Providing 5-foot sidewalks along President and Livermore Street, providing bicycle parking spaces for a total of 48, and then also a stormwater management plan. So that's all that I have, but I'll stand for any questions on details if you want, or you could also now hear from the applicant.
I have a question about the open space, because I come up with a different number. And I'm wondering to know, I know I looked at their, I think it was F, where you said they had it in it, and it looked to me like they are simply taking the land, the total amount, subtracting the parking lot and the buildings, and anything left they're calling open space. Yet that is not what open space is. In our code, it's pretty specific of what open space is. And so anyway, I end up seeing really 2 areas that could be considered open space. There'd be between the buildings and then another, because they are supposed to be larger areas. And so I'm just wondering how it was calculated, because I'm coming up with significantly less than that.
Yeah, so that was calculated by the applicant, so I think that might be best for them to answer and address.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for Meg on things she's covered?
I have one other item to mention in the whole equation that I did talk to Meg about this the other day. We're sort of new on the bike parking requirement, and we identified, I'll call it a wording conflict in what we added in terms of bike racks versus bike spaces, and it's something we've talked about clarifying as a revision. So by my calculation, to have 48 bike spaces, you only need 24 racks. So it would be a reduction in the number of racks, I think, than what's been stated, which actually, from looking at the drawings, might allow nudging additional parking space or 2, depending on where they're all located. So I wanted to just throw that out. Maybe get discussed a little later.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Meg? Comments? Okay. Windsor, if you want to present.
Well, and thank you for the questions. I'll plan to address both of them. Eric Alfieri, the Windsor Companies, I have been sworn in. If I could trouble you to go to slide 10 of our presentation. First, I'd like to thank the commission once again for taking their time this evening to hear, this has been a spirited dialogue, and we appreciate all your feedback and thoughts. Another step along this multi-months or, coming up on a year-long conversation with the village. And I think the more time we at Windsor spend here, the more excited we are at the opportunity to provide housing solutions to the individuals and families that so badly want to live here. I'll keep my remarks this evening relatively brief and focused on the changes we discussed during our meeting on the 13th of May. As you'll recall, we proposed reducing the density at the student union site from 128 units to 96 units, as Meg pointed out during her presentation. This was a good faith effort on our part to work with the village in finding a middle path while still proposing a plan that we knew we could execute on. And this is something we discussed at length during our last committee hearing. So the unit reduction serves to address several concerns that we have discussed during these meetings and that we've heard from the village. First, density and height. The removal of the first floor of the proposed buildings reduces the height at their tallest point by approximately 6 feet and reduces density by 25%. In terms of parking, we look to address some of these questions, and the unit reduction now brings the ratio of parking spaces to units to just over 1.3 times, which is even more comfortably in line with local comparables, as we discussed last time we were in this room, and is also in excess of the 1-to-1 ratio that is increasingly common in revised code around the state, which faces such an acute shortage of rental housing, as we're all very well aware. In the next few slides, you'll see the revised renderings of our proposal, in which we've noted all of these changes. Again, thank you for the consideration, as well as the productive feedback during all of these hearings and prior conversations. I'd also like to thank the village's staff for their diligence and hard work throughout all of our conversations as well. I'll pause to address any questions. I think a handful. Gary, I'll start with yours first. In terms of bike parking, I think we'd be happy to, discuss what's a optimal solution for the village. In our earlier conversations, I think, we had discussed a rack for 128 spaces. So I think we certainly have appetite, and it's part of the sort of community plan that we laid out in our broader presentation, that we'd like to integrate, the biking culture of the village into the site. So, we're open to having that dialogue. I'm not sure if that answers that question specifically.
We'll talk more about it later.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a detail.
But please, we're fully willing and able. In terms of your question on green space, the calculation was, as Meg pointed out, provided by our architects. Our view here is we're taking what is currently overgrown, blighted, dangerous, and beautifying it. There will be 2 substantial park-like spaces for the benefit of the community. They're not in the center of the planned site. They're meant to be integrated with folks around them. And then in terms of the other space, this will be part of integrating with the sidewalks that we have planned, that we have agreed to. I think it's really looking at it from a holistic perspective. There are 2, we've maximized the large chunks of park that we can include, but there also will be plenty of landscaped green space around the building that we still believe qualifies. So our read of it was a little bit different. Appreciate your point. We did try to maximize green space, publicly available green space, to the best of our abilities, so that's how I would respond to that question.
I was looking at it and reading the code, and what is considered the open space is that it does not include the area around parking, loading areas, and it doesn't include areas that might be considered backyards. It is larger areas where people can congregate, where visitors can be. It shall be sufficient size and dimension and located, configured, or designed in such a way as to achieve the applicable purposes of this chapter. So I really saw only the two areas, which are the two that you mentioned, the one between the buildings and then the other one. So that significantly reduces down the total amount of open space.
Sure. Well, just to be clear, those are not backyards on the side that faces the road. Those won't be, it's not as if there will be a sliding door that folks on the first floor can use those as their personal space. That's really meant to integrate with the sidewalk, all that green space. So, that's again how I would respond to that question.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Is that it? Does anyone have any questions for him?
Not
Any
at this
other
point.
questions? Okay, then we will go ahead and open it up to the public hearing. So anybody who wants to speak, you'll have 2 minutes. Please say your name, that you've been sworn in, and then speak. And when you hear the little sound of your 2 minutes are up, you need to finish up right away. So go ahead, who's ever wanting to come and talk.
Hi, I'll start. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Robert Pryor, and I've lived in the village on and off since the late 60s when I was a student at Antioch. So I'm very familiar with this area and the traffic flow in the past and at present, all those kinds of issues. I find 2 problems with this proposed housing. First of all, I want to say we need apartments and we need them in that place. That's a great place for apartments, but it's too crowded. I realize that they've gone down to 96, but they need to go down to 64 with 2 floors. That is workable. 96 is not workable for that area of our town. It's too dense. There's no other areas in our town that are anywhere near that dense. So that's a really important point. Along with that is the traffic flow. They project traffic flow exiting at 2 points. Livermore Street and Davis or Whiteman Street at the north. I would suggest a good plan would be to move the green space from where it is in the southern part up to the border of Davis and Whiteman Street, thus allowing an exit on a reopened North College Street. I think that's really crucial because if you reopen North College Street, it was always open in the past until about 1970. And then they closed it because there were too many gawkers coming through from out of town. In any case, that would allow direct access both to Route 68 and Corey Street without having to go up Davis or Whiteman Street. That's an integrated neighborhood. It's a classic integrated neighborhood with a triangle at the center. There's a very strong community feeling there. I used to live there in the 80s. It's a wonderful community. Intense traffic flow will really be hard on that community. So 2 things, size and parking. If you reduce the size, you solve the problem with the parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Oh, no.
Hello, Jackie Hempling, resident. Sorry, I hadn't been following this until I heard that the number of apartments had been reduced, which is just tragic. So I've come to try and stop the bleeding and hopefully not see any further reductions. Obviously, we want as many apartments in town as possible. And my understanding from everyone that I've heard about, that I've heard talk about this plan is that they absolutely are in support of as many apartments as possible from this project. So, thank you all.
Okay, next.
Hello. My name is Matt Raska. The following is not a paid endorsement of Windsor. I have no financial stake in making Yellow Springs affordable again. But sometimes I do forget why I spend so much energy advocating for housing. But I had a reminder this past Sunday. My family had walked down to the Emporium to get breakfast, and we incidentally met some friends there. And while we were chatting out on the sidewalk, and signing that petition to stop Senate Bill 1, my daughter and her friends ran up and down the street and out of the stores just giggling and having a great time. And this little bit of activism and community and joy appeared to me a little microcosm of what makes Yellow Springs so incredibly special. I couldn't get this, I feel incredibly lucky. Everyone should have a life this good. What can I do to make this life possible for others feeling? In 2018, like Planning Commission, I'm sure will recall, that there was the Boeing Housing Needs Study, and it said we needed 515 more places for people to live. We've since then added 112 homes, 86 of them high-income homes. The low end of the market for habitation in Yellow Springs is critically neglected. Windsor is giving lots of money to Antioch to demolish the derelict student union and build places for people to live. Why is there opposition to this? If the college's enrollment suddenly tripled, quadrupled, doubled, and Antioch needed to build new dorms, would there be opposition to that? Antioch wanted to build the Antioch College Village, convert the campus to housing, was part of their plan. The main hall has been unoccupied and water damaged for almost 20 years now. And we can pretend that Antioch is going to bounce back to life like it has so many times over the past 160 so years, but they're selling off all their assets as fast as they can to stave off shuttering. The best thing we can do to help this is make Antioch's assets a wise investment. I want to paint a broader picture of the issues that are affecting our country rather than just our village. These apartments would be at the core of our urban service delivery area. No one is being displaced or gentrified. The average monthly rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in Yellow Springs or in Ohio is over $1,300. Values are practices, not postures, and I prefer the narrative that Yellow Springs is on the right side of history and forward thinking. But if we want to be true to our view of ourselves, we need to actually practice our values by saying yes for places to people to live. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Okay, Tom Degenhart, resident. And I'm glad, Susan, you brought that up because there are very specific things in there that address open space. And this does not, as you saw in my letter, it does not qualify. Most of the land does not qualify for open space. There is less than 15% dedicated open space in this, which is a requirement for PUD. Nowhere near the 25% for the density bonus. And does the density bonus, even if they had that, does that mean unlimited? This is 4 times what the average apartment building density is in the village. So there's that. Second point, we talk about parking, and it's going to be less than 1 unit per space. They say there are dumpsters in that plan. You're looking at the same plan I am. There are no dumpster spaces in that. There's no place for a dumpster in there. So that's going to take parking spaces away. The Yellow Springs has a code about trees in parking lots. If a parking lot has more than 10 parking spaces, it needs a tree island. That's going to take 10 more spaces out of that parking lot right there. So we're going to be down to 90-ish maybe parking spaces if we follow code, which the findings don't seem to be real objective. It's not, it's like, okay, we need to pass this no matter what. And a lot of time it just says it's in finding with the village's comprehensive plan. Well, it doesn't follow the rules. It doesn't follow the zoning code. It doesn't follow the requirements. Some of the basic requirements have not been met. And the last thing I want to mention that's on page 64 of the proposal that hasn't been addressed, I don't know if this is still in discussion, it mentions a 75% reduction in property tax for 15 years. People are leaving the village because they can't afford the property tax, and we're giving them a 75% reduction in property tax for 15 years? I mean, it just doesn't seem right to me. So, I guess that's it.
Let's, if we can hold the clapping, folks will have more time to talk. So please do not clap.
Next.
You stay after.
Anybody else want to speak?
David Roy. I live here in the village, been here since 2007. If you're going to have zoning and planning rules and regulations, they should be stuck to. Why start going and changing and reducing numbers, or increasing numbers rather, when you should be reducing numbers? If we originally agreed that we'd only have a certain amount of building in the village, that's what we should be sticking to. when they talk about we're meeting code, do you know what code is? Code is the minimum standard for habitability. It is the minimum, the absolute least you could have. And now the developer is proud that they're going to actually meet a minimum standard. We should be hoping for way more than minimum standards when we come here. And Yellow Springs is a place that has a great feeling. When you walk around, there's trees. There's barely any two houses the same, except God love them, than those new ones in the Fisher homes. Different colors of paint, all very much cookie cuttered. Do we really need cookie cutters? We need lots of nice buildings, plenty of space, walkways, parking. We must have parking. Where are they going to park around this building here? They're going to park out on the street. And then where are the students going to park? Where are the people going into the wellness center park? I don't know. It's going to be a total mess. It does appear that the Planning Commission seems to want just to keep building, fill in every space we have in the village at any cost. We don't need that. We don't need to fill in the village. I mean, we've had the biggest building boom in the last couple of years in the village. There's no requirement that we keep this rolling. You know, it's not like you all need to keep your jobs. You're still going to have them here. There'll still be a little bit. We don't need to rush into stuff. Everything we do now, we'll regret later. We don't need to have regrets afterwards, because that's what we'll have. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Hello, I'm Wendy DeLong. I live at 135 East Davis, and I did swear in. I am in favor of apartments being built on that site. I just think they need to be to scale in a way that makes sense for the neighborhood and incorporates them in the neighborhood instead of having them tower over and take over the neighborhood. One of the ways I think that the plan as it is would do that is sound or noise. And so I have comments I'd like to read on that topic. An analysis of the noise that will be generated by 96 roof-mounted HVAC units needs to be submitted by an independent credentialed acoustical engineer based on the specific equipment that will be installed and operated in numbers and not for a single unit as measured and submitted by the developer. It is a known fact that multiple sound sources, even at the same decibel level, will amplify the perceived loudness. Simultaneous operation of multiple units needs to be evaluated. It is also known that wind speed and direction can carry the noise emissions downwind from the source. Wind direction in the area is predominantly from the southwest, placing the adjacent neighbors downwind from the proposed project. Acoustical modeling may be required that reflects the location and environment in which 96 HVAC units will be installed. The nighttime recommended standard of the World Health Organization is 45 dBA or decibels, which has been the historical noise ordinance limit of the adjoining residential property line. It is important to be assured of compliance in the design stage. If equipment is installed that proves to be a problem, a remedy can be very expensive. It is important that the make and model of the equipment analyzed be guaranteed to be incorporated into the constructed project. The noise study provided by the developer states that modern building construction, it states that the people in the apartments will not be bothered by the noise created by these units, but people in the neighborhood who live in older homes, which is what we all live in, will be affected by the noise. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Hi, my name is Natalie Kuba, and I'm a resident of the village, and I have been sworn in. I strongly support the proposed 96-unit housing development in our village. This project directly addresses one of our most pressing needs, more housing. As it stands, our community simply doesn't have enough homes. I know that. I moved here last year and struggled to find a house. This shortage impacts everyone from young families to older residents looking to downsize. Regarding the size of the building, I'd like to point out that there are buildings on the Antioch campus that are taller than this proposed building, and that the campus used to house 2,500 students. With this building and the current Antioch student body, it would be just 12% of the population that was once on campus. In addition to providing much-needed housing, this development will bring more residents to our village, residents who will shop downtown and contribute to the vitality of our community. Our downtown is the heart of the village, and it thrives when people live close and engage with it daily. Finally, the site of the proposed development is currently an eyesore. Redeveloping it into an attractive, functional space will be a tremendous improvement, both aesthetically and economically. It will turn a long-neglected property into something that adds real value to our community. I struggle to understand why there's an issue with that. This is an opportunity to invest in the village's future by creating more vibrant, welcoming, and a livable community for all, and I hope that you will support it. Thank you.
Okay, next.
I'm Jerry Papania. I've been sworn in. I'm a resident of the village for 47 years. You've received many documents related to this issue that I trust you've carefully examined, including a petition that was signed by 55 community members that take issue with the project's density and lack of off-street parking. I'll not attempt to cite all the reasons that the current proposal does not qualify for PUD status, but I'll highlight a few. The proposed development unquestionably does not provide adequate on-site parking for the proposed number of dwellings. Examples of proposed developments and good planning practice put the number of required spaces at a minimum of 1.5 per dwelling unit. A physical counting of parking spaces of parked vehicles at a number of area apartment complexes ranging in size from 16 to over 100 units verifies that number. That ratio is not achievable with the proposed number of units on the 2.16 acre site. The proposed density of development is atypical of similar apartment projects proposed in the suburban Dayton area that have been documented over the past 9 months. As an example, the recently announced VC Flats project in Kettering, consisting of 264 units on 12 acres with 423 parking spaces, equates to 1.6 parking spaces per unit. The density per acre, if applied to the student union site, would result in 48 dwelling units. The decision to defer the traffic study until after approval of zoning is ill-advised, considering the obvious traffic problems this development will generate. Before PUD zoning is approved, it needs to be recognized that the extension of East North College is essential for safety and other reasons. Entrance and exit of the proposed parking lot needs to be limited to the extended North College and a four-way stop. Also, Antioch needs to cede the real estate required for this, and the developer needs to be committed to cover the cost of that street extension. And granting the requested PUD and approving the development as currently proposed will set a regrettable precedent that will come back to haunt the Planning Commission and the village in the future.
Okay, next.
Hi, my name's Relita Hildebrand. I just wanted to say that I think, unlike other proposed developments in Yellow Springs, this one is in the right place, and we do need housing. I think this development would be a huge asset to our community, to the village, and I do agree with some of the sentiments shared today that any traffic study should be done in advance of approval, and also infrastructure, because I think the developer should bear the burden of any additional infrastructure requirements and road construction that would be required as a result of the development. But if we continue to tell ourselves that this isn't like what we have now, we're ignoring the fact that this is a state-of-the-art building. It's much newer than anything we have in apartments in the village, and we have people who would potentially want to live there. And so I don't know why we're arguing about this, other than that we're afraid to take a leap. And I hope you take the leap and help us get to where we need to be as far as housing is concerned. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Kim Kalasa. I've been a resident on Livermore Street for 10 years now. Okay, is this better?
No, put it up a little.
Okay.
I don't touch the mic.
Hello, is this okay?
The mic is going to the television. Okay. And then if you could affirm that you're sworn in, please.
Okay, yes, I've been sworn in. The 96 proposed apartments on the 2-acre lot of the former Antioch Student Union will create an exponential traffic increase in the surrounding residential neighborhood. The extreme density of this development will add between 100 and 200 cars to this small area. I'm assuming people will double up in these single apartments because for costs. In addition to cars, there are bicycles, golf carts, scooters, skateboards, joggers, and a great many walkers regularly traveling down both Livermore and Whiteman. Many children walk, skateboard, go to Mills Lawn School and other Yellow Springs venues. Both proposed access points are practically next to the Triangle Park, which, as you know, has acute angles and people don't always stop, and it's a troublesome intersection already. With a lot more traffic, it's going to be even more of a problem. Those concerns are exacerbated by the shortage of off-street parking. So many of the residents will park on the street in the closest place they can find. It's much harder for drivers to see walkers, joggers, bicyclists, etc., when the cars are parked on the street. Additionally, those people, joggers, bicyclists, will have to go on the inside of the street to get by. They'll have to go by the parked cars. So that makes it more dangerous for those travelers. And it is a main street going north and south in the village. One way to reduce the effect of this traffic is to require that the exit entry is on North College Street, which Jerry has already brought up. Without this proposed development, we would not need the extension to North College Street. So it should be no question that the developer accept the costs for extending this, because we wouldn't need it without it. There are the zoning code has 4 specific things that I think is getting broken by this proposed development. Rezoning the area to PUD will not result in a significant adverse effect upon nearby or adjacent village lands. It absolutely will be a big effect with traffic to those of us who live there. It is not being used as a means to circumvent conventional zoning requirements. Without the request for the PUD, the maximum density for multifamily high density is 14 units per acre, as we've already discussed. PUD will provide for safe and efficient vehicular movement inside and outside of the PUD site. Traffic calming techniques and a lot of other things will be done. There are no attempts to manage traffic in this residential area. And also interior streets. Before this PUD is approved for development, an agreement should be in place for North College to be extended to Livermore. Vehicle access to the apartments must be limited to North College Street, and it would be vital to the safety of the non-vehicular people who travel that route every day. Thank you.
Okay. Why don't we let the gentleman over there? Yes. I know you've jumped up a couple times.
Tim Conlon. I own the building across the street from the entrance and exit of the proposed apartments. So I've owned that building since 1983. I bought it from Antioch College. It was dilapidated, fixed it up, and really improved that part of the neighborhood, as have many people in that neighborhood. They've fixed up these buildings. Now, the reason that I wrote the letter to your packet was because of the exit and the entrance there, which points directly to my house and the property. And just to reiterate all the other things about the traffic, I just can't imagine 100 cars coming out of there, coming right onto Whiteman, going about 50 feet, having to make another hard left, and meanwhile looking over your right shoulder for the traffic coming down President Street. Now, I can tell you that residents in that corner house, which is on the corner of President Whiteman right there, often have children. We had children when we lived there. The current people that live there have 3 small children. This is an accident waiting to happen, and I'm pretty surprised that nobody brought this up. So as other people have said, this exit entrance ramp here, this is a non-starter. You really can't have that. I mean, I don't know where you're going to put it, but it either has to be eliminated or it has to be put onto the North College section there. And I won't even go into the specific code numbers that have been mentioned by others, but as I looked at the code, started reading it, I could see specific points disqualified this plan. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Good evening. My name is Desiree Nickel, and I live at 131 East Davis Street, and I've been sworn in. While I have many objections to the Windsor apartment complex as proposed, I will focus my remarks tonight on just 3 areas: affordability, size, and traffic. In the staff recommendations to the Planning Commission, they indicate that Windsor companies will commit that 15% of the 96 proposed units will remain permanently affordable. As evidence, they point to Exhibit G, a letter from Eric Alfieri, a partner in the Windsor companies. In this letter, Mr. Alfieri states, quote, "We would propose setting aside 15% of the units for residents making 80% of less of area median income in the Dayton-Kettering MSA. Unlike village staff, Mr. Alfieri did not include the word permanently. Furthermore, Mr. Alfieri indicated that Windsor Companies anticipates leveraging the Community Reinvestment Area program and benefiting from a 15-year, 75% property tax abatement. Indeed, Mr. Alfieri states that project viability is dependent on this tax abatement. Has village staff agreed to this? Does the Yellow Springs School District know about this? Does the community know about this? It seems to me that this condition is an effort to rob Peter to pay Paul. Next, one of the qualifying conditions of a PUD variance is its size. According to PUD standards, each PUD shall contain a maximum of, or a minimum of 5 acres. If a proposed PUD falls below this requirement, they must meet a variety of conditions, including the proposed uses will complement the character of the surrounding area. The proposed development assuredly does not complement the character of the surrounding area. The proposed units are twice the size of Hawthorne Place apartments on much less acreage. Furthermore, the parking lots of the apartments abut the backyards of neighboring residents. There is no street or wall of 50-foot pine trees separating the parking lot from the neighbors' backyards. Floodlights, cars going in and out of the lot, dumpsters being emptied, all will disturb the quiet of our neighborhood. Okay, I'm going to skip to my final paragraph. It's short. Finally, I want to address traffic. As proposed by Windsor Development Companies, access to the apartment complex will be from Livermore and East Whiteman Streets. Since I live on the Triangle, I can see both streets from my porch. Let me tell you what I regularly see on those streets. Parents and children riding their bikes to and from Mills Lawn School. Buddhists from the Dharma Center practicing walking meditation. Couples and families out for their evening stroll. Antioch students on their way downtown. Skateboarders, bike riders, sometimes even parades. Imagine the effect of 200 cars added to the mix. The cars won't disappear, but the people will. Without a thoughtful traffic plan, the proposed development will destroy the character of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, next.
My name is Yoko Conlon. I'm wife of Tim Conlon, and I sworn in. I really do understand, and I would love to support the idea of having more apartment in town, because that's what I hear from many people. I think it's very important to understand that part. But I hear from Windsor Company, you know, if it's for the village, this community, can we come to some kind of sensible sort of way to accommodate each other's needs? People want apartments. Neighborhood wants, you know, keep the peaceful, quiet neighborhood. And for me to walk through that area, and then I go to see my daughter lives in Princeton. And outside the Princeton, right now, they're building those 4-story, 3-story, big apartments everywhere. But they were built in a vast area, not in downtown, not in the residential area where it exists. So I just can't imagine, when I saw that plan in May meeting, I just couldn't believe that kind of building is going to go up there, right next to Antioch campus. And Antioch, yes, it's really struggling, but still, they do have beautiful brick old buildings still exist. And this new structure is going to go up there with that tall building. I just can't imagine. Can we come to some kind of agreement, make it into 2 stories, use bricks, melt it into Antioch campus? That's what I want to see. Any architect can have that kind of good idea? I'll go for that. Thank you.
Okay, next.
My name is Sherry Ely. I'm a resident, and I also am Dean of Students at Antioch College. I did not prepare formal comments. I just wanted to say that I am looking forward to these apartments and the revitalization it would bring to our campus and getting rid of a horrible eyesore and dangerous building. But I also am concerned by the suggestion of reopening East North College because that cuts straight through our campus and would actually divide part of our residential buildings from the rest of campus. It is right next to Weston Hall, which is our current student union, and I have pretty significant safety concerns about that consideration. So I know that's not necessarily on the agenda right now, but it's been brought up by multiple residents, and I would just caution against that. I've been on multiple campuses where roads through campuses have been closed off for safety concerns, and I would just like that to be heard as well. So.
Okay.
My name's Michael Brown. I'm a neighbor of the development, live at Whiteman Street. I have been sworn in. Character of the neighborhood is an interesting term, and people throw it around, and how quiet a neighborhood it is. Well, it didn't always be that way. What I think of where we live, which is a block and a half from the campus, is that we are people who own houses that are almost guests of a college that was once 20,000 or 22,000 students. 2,500, somebody said. I expected it was more like 2,000. And while I respect zoning, I love zoning, I would think that this board will make some exceptions as they establish the PUD and know that I support you as you listen to the arguments and listen to the Windsor Group and come to a compromise that will suit the needs of apartments in the village. We do need apartments. Somebody mentioned brick. I saw brick on the website of the Windsor Group in the building. I think it will be an interesting part to the neighborhood. It'll certainly add life, and it'll be, I believe that apartments in that area not only will eliminate a huge eyesore and a big problem with the asbestos in the building, but it also adds something new. I do support the reopening of the street. I do think that that's necessary of opening East North College. Thank you. I'm sure you'll come to a proper conclusion. Thank you.
Okay, next, anybody?
Lisa Abel. I've been sworn in. I live at 114 North Winter Street, and half of my property faces twin coach apartments. I have friends that live near or across the street from Hawthorne Apartments. Both of those apartments have few sidewalks around them, so people and kids and everybody else walks in the street to get from point A to point B. And I can tell you that those are the nicest neighbors, and they are the quietest neighbors. And most of them that I see on a regular basis walk to town. They don't want to drive. When they do drive, most of them head west. So typically the traffic heads out of town. And it's random. There aren't 50 people pulling out at one time. It's not like a workplace let out. It's random throughout the day, throughout the week, and it's not a big, it's not like school letting out. So many of us who own houses are privileged enough to own houses, started out in apartments. I certainly did. Today, many can never afford the houses that those of us who are privileged enough to own, they can't afford those. They have to rent, probably for the rest of their lives. I wanted to dispel a couple things about cost. In Yellow Springs, the cost of a one-bedroom apartment is $755. In Xenia, it's $951. These are averages. Springfield, $825. Fairborn, $855. We're the lowest for one-bedroom and two-bedroom. When you look at those apartment buildings that I just talked about, when you talk to people that live there, those are crummy, crummy, crummy places to live. They're falling down, they leak, they're cold, they're hot. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is that between, mysterious to me, but between 2010 and 2020, we lost 460 rental houses. So there is a shortage.
Okay, next.
Is she fine? Hi, Brittany Keller. I'm not a neighbor of the project. I'm just a interested citizen.
Were you sworn in?
No. Do I need to swear
I need to swear you in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll swear.
I came late.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before this board?
Yes.
Okay.
My comments aren't long. I just wanted to say I'm supportive of anything that promotes infill development in Yellow Springs. I don't think we're going to solve our housing crisis moving out of town. I think the more we can do in town, the better. High density apartments are exactly what we need, especially this close to downtown at a campus. So I support this proposal, and I hope it goes through.
Okay.
Evening, I'm Brian Norman. I've been sworn in. I'm an employee of the college for the last few years. I'm also a frequent supporter, joyful supporter of the downtown businesses in the village of Yellow Springs. I believe in a vibrant Antioch. I believe in a vibrant village, and I believe our futures are intertwined, including the $14.5 million positive economic impact that the college provides to the village each year. I believe that Windsor is offering a responsible infill plan. I believe they are offering us a win-win-win solution. They are offering us an opportunity to increase our housing, including for all ages and family types. I believe they're offering us a plan to increase our tax base amid a financially struggling village, and to increase business downtown amid a struggling economy. And I believe they're offering for the college an opportunity to have a more vibrant connection between the college and the village amid a dangerous eyesore. This is the viable proposal that is in front of us. We have a willing partner who has incorporated thoughtful community feedback, and I'm really grateful for that. And so now we are looking for thoughtful leadership from the village. If you believe in more apartments as a housing option, please show us. If you believe in a more economically vibrant downtown, please show us. If you believe in a more diverse village, including across all ages and family types, please show us. Let's take the win while it's still in front of us. I personally look forward to more vibrant connection with the village. Thank you.
Hello, Dino Palata. Yes, I've been sworn in. I'm going to kind of take an overview on this from the comprehensive land use plan. We've always looked at workforce housing and affordable housing. They've been our buzzwords, they've been our keywords, and these seem to meet these goals of ours. Workforce housing is key. We want it, we need it, we have to have it. It is primary for the people that want to come in and live in Yellow Springs that can't afford to live in Yellow Springs. Affordability, you're going to have about 14 units. That would be permanent. If they said it was going to be permanently, that would be great, permanent affordability. You're also going to have an income tax that's going to come in now from people that are working in the village. Property taxes, there may be an abatement, but at this point, you're getting, since it's a school, you're getting zero taxes on this property. It's only going forward, even after the abatement would run out, we're going to still get tax dollars coming in the future. So things to think about in the big picture. Curious question that I have is, I've been here long enough to know when Antioch was blossoming, is where did the people park when you had 600 to 2,000 students? Not just in that area, where did they park? I don't have an answer for it, I'm just throwing it out there.
Everywhere.
Lastly, Matt Raska had it right and in his statements, and I'm sorry, I'm going to throw you under the bus, not really. It's been great that she brings institutional knowledge here as director of Home Inc. and also sits on the board of Antioch. I think her knowledge that she can bring to the table to share with you guys is going to be wonderful. I hope she shares it with you, but I just hope that we can get through this and look at these things that are going to bring value to the village. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Mullen. I'm the director of the Yellow Springs Senior Center, and I did swear in, and I appreciate the work this group has been doing on the project. I have to say, the Senior Center was delighted to know that apartments could be right across the street from our future site. It's going to be pretty awesome, particularly now that there will be apartments that can be entered without steps. So that is going to be a fantastic option. But, and for those who don't have the context, the Senior Center has bought half an acre of land at the corner of East North College and Livermore, and our intention is to build our new facility there in the next 3 years or so. And I'm just asking, I've been learning a whole lot in the process of designing a building, and this is where I turn to all of you as the experts, because while it sounds like a traffic study has been recommended, I want to please ask that it's mandatory, and that it also, that mandatory traffic study, again, I don't know how these process, but could it be taken into account what the future situation of that corner is going to be? It's not going to be a quiet neighborhood only when all those apartments come in and when there's a pretty robust senior center at the corner. And the folks that are coming to the senior center are walking, they're biking, but they may also be on a mobility device that has them at a seated level. And that means parked cars become an issue when you're trying to move through traffic. If we have dense parking on the sides of every street out there, we may have some real challenges for people moving around. So I ask for people to be very considerate about the density of the parking in those units. Think about how the streets can best help with the traffic flow, and also assure that future needs of the entire community are taken into account.
Hi, I'm Emily Seibel. I'm a resident of Yellow Springs. I have been sworn in, and I am here today as a member of the Board of Trustees of Antioch College and the head of the Facilities and Finance Committee. And so when we created a social enterprise plan and identified excess land, the goal was to have a strategy screen, which we used, and to consider community impact and reactivate sites that were sitting vacant so that it could be put to good use in our community. That plan is going well, by the way. As an aside, Antioch is rising up. But I did want to just say that we know that we need apartments. The housing study has been very clear about this. Apartments, 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 as you say, Carmen, as Denise Swinger used to say. And our current stock of market rate rentals is insufficient and aging. I don't think there's been anything new outside of what Homing's been doing for, 40 years? It's really hard to make these projects work. And fortunately, we have a developer who is willing to invest in Yellow Springs and wants to be part of our broader community. They're going out on a limb to try to make this work, and I'm hoping that we can give it a shot. Obviously, all of the concerns need to be taken seriously with regards to parking and traffic mitigation and landscaping and noise, but I'm really confident that through this process we'll be able to address those concerns. And of course, we're especially excited about the 15% commitment to permanent affordability. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
I am sworn in. Timothy Barton. I live at 610 Livermore.
You haven't been sworn in? Okay. This is a painless process. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before this board?
I sure do.
Great, thank you.
I just want to take a quick second to strongly encourage the North College entrance and exit. I think this is one of the biggest problems, and I'm hearing it, I live at 610. Everybody's going to be coming right out into my house as well. If there's any way, Windsor can make the entrance come in and out of North College, I think that's just, there's nobody there, right? The cars come out and nobody's headlights is hitting a house. Nobody's, it just seems kind of like an easy adjustment, and it would take a lot of, certainly my concerns. But yeah, I'm just here to support the North College thoroughfare. Plus, people could go North College to Corey and get away from going right down Main Street, because that's how they're going to do it. They're going to come in. If you go to Springfield, you're going to go down Main Street, and it's going to be, it's already getting busy. So this way they could go to Corey and then off to Springfield. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Good evening. My name's Ellis Jacobs. I'm a close neighbor of this proposed development, and I appear here only in that capacity. I have been sworn in, and I adopt and incorporate all my prior written submissions into my sworn testimony here tonight. I support apartments at this location, but the proposal is for buildings that are just too big, too massive, and too dense for this location. And as I've detailed in writing, maybe too long a writing, the application fails to meet the mandatory requirements of Chapter 1254 in many ways. It's the responsibility of the Planning Commission. It's your responsibility to make sure that they satisfy that, and according to the words of the code, that they demonstrate that before you can actually vote to approve this proposal. It's not the staff's responsibility to review it, it's yours. You are in no way bound by the staff's thoughts or ideas or recommendations on this proposal. The ordinance's requirements are numerous and they're strict. And they're written that way for a reason. When a developer is seeking a PUD, they're saying that they want to get out of complying with numerous zoning rules that protect the community. And so there need to be strict guardrails. And so that's what the PUD ordinance with all those requirements does. Most importantly, the requirements are strict to rule out extreme and inappropriate proposals. Like this one. These developers are not seeking a 10% or a 20% density bonus. The way I calculate it, they're seeking a 200% density bonus, more than 3 times what they're allowed, would normally be allowed. They seek to build massive buildings, and each of these buildings is 100 feet longer than North Hall. Each of them has a much larger footprint than North Hall. These are big buildings. They're the kind of buildings you see on the side of a road of a highway somewhere, in a development surrounded by other big buildings, or you see in a downtown area surrounded by other massive buildings. You do not see them in small villages. And there's a reason. These developers are also seeking to significantly add to the road traffic in the small neighborhood streets, and you've heard a lot about that here tonight. And they're not even offering to improve the road that runs right in front of their development so they can relieve that traffic. In referencing your review standards from 1254.06 again, they have proposed a project that will impermissibly, quote, place a significant burden upon the surrounding land and which is not, quote, compatible with adjacent uses of land. The testimony you've heard and the written testimony you've received makes this abundantly clear. In closing, we learned at least one thing at last month's public hearing. Not that they wanted to compromise with the community, that they were willing to reduce the size of this when it was pointed out that they would be in violation of the Fair Housing Act. So we know that they have flexibility in the size of what they want to propose. When they say or intimate that they need to cram all of these units on this small property, I think you need to take that with a grain of salt. They have flexibility. They've shown it to us, not for a particularly good reason, but we're glad that they at least decided to comply with the Fair Housing Act. That's very good. They're perfectly capable of coming up with a revised proposal. Pardon me?
Wrap it up, please.
Okay, I am. They are perfectly capable of coming up with a revised proposal for an appropriately scaled project that will meet the requirements of the code. We want housing. Let's get it done, but let's come up with something that's reasonable and actually fits the site. For all these reasons, you should deny this application. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes.
I'm Jane Fernandez, president of Antioch College. I don't think I'll take 2 minutes, but I want to say for myself, I'm very excited about this process. I'm excited to see the work that you're doing as a planning committee, and I'm excited to work with Windsor companies, and I'm very, very proud to be the president of Antioch College. And I think that what we're talking about here is a great rejuvenation for the village. And although we certainly don't want it to be an overwhelming rejuvenation, I think what we're talking about can be a very exciting and can allow more people who would love to work and live here to do so. I can envision a great apartment building where Windsor Companies is now talking about replacing the student union, which has to go. One way or another, it's an eyesore, and it's not a good representation of the work we're doing. And then the senior center will have a building, and then the catering building will be apartments, and we'll have a wellness center. We'll have the possibility for people, maybe older people, to come and take some of our classes. There's all kinds of possibilities in that combination of things. So I do urge us to try and find a way to make it happen. I know there's lots of problems. I see them. And I don't have the expertise to fix those. But I think Jason Dorsey has some expertise with those, and others have it. I wish that we will all work together to make this happen, because it will definitely be a great step in the future of Yellow Springs. And I'm proud to be a part of it. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. Okay.
Next. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before this board?
I do. Okay. My name is Erin. I live at 113 East Whiteman Street, so I'm a close neighbor of the building that's going up.
And your last name?
Rogers.
Thank you.
Sorry. I hear the neighborhood conversation. Everybody wants housing. Everybody wants something to go there. I have not heard one person say, I don't want something there. So just so everybody knows, everybody wants something. I heard somebody make a comment tonight, we're scared to take a leap. I heard somebody last week say we've kicked the can too long on housing. I wouldn't buy a blender without doing research. When I bought my house, David Roche, you inspected it. I got information. You gather information, you did studies. Please do some studies on this thing before you do it. This is a huge investment. It's massive. Why there hasn't been a traffic, a water runoff, noise, light study it's very bizarre to me. So please do that before you do this. And that's kind of like we're having all these conversations about extending a road or doing this, and this is too big or it's too small. Nobody knows because we haven't actually gotten any data. I work in the sciences, and if something's not peer-reviewed, it's not science. This, to me, should involve some kind of hard facts and investigation. And so that's what I'd love to see. Also, this isn't the last thing that's going to be built. It doesn't have to be huge. We're going to see more and more of these buildings. There may be more at Antioch's campus. So this doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all. I agree there's probably a workable compromise. I really hope there is, because that's come up a lot. That's great. Let's have that. The mention of the cars with the students and where did everybody park. I doubt there were 2,000 cars to 2,000 students. It's just not real. Like, I went to college, we went to college, people didn't all have a car. Also, this is a really specific question at the end. Is there going to be a hedge between the neighborhood and the building? I just hadn't heard it brought up yet, and I'd be curious if there is. That's it. Thanks.
I haven't been sworn in.
Oh, you have not. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before this board?
I do. My name is Kevin Magruder. I'm an associate professor of history at Antioch College. I also teach social enterprise classes at Antioch. I've been involved with different aspects of real estate on campus, and you probably know, as Jane Fernandez was telling you, this is part of Antioch College's social enterprise and enrollment program. And we've concluded that we have more campus than we need because of our enrollment. And so this has the potential of being a win-win, both for the college and for the campus. I'm here to encourage you to support this development because in doing so, the village would take a major step in following one of the recommendations outlined in the Yellow Springs Housing Needs Assessment Report, completed by Bowen National Research in 2018. As you may know, that report was commissioned by council to inform them on what the future housing needs of the village would be. The process was managed by the village manager's Housing Advisory Board under village manager Patty Bates. I was a member of that board. Part of the reason was because I've been working on housing in different ways on the nonprofit side since I graduated from college in 1979. As a member of that board, I've been disappointed because it seems like the needs assessment has suffered the fate of many studies, shelved and unread, even though anyone who searches for Yellow Springs Needs Assessment on the village website can find it within minutes. On pages 10 through 12 of the report, Bowen noted a need between 2018 and 2022 for approximately 70 units of workforce rental housing, affordable to people earning between 61% and 120% of median income. And today that would be between $51,000 to $100,000 as household income. It also recommended a need for approximately 60 market rate units for households earning $75,000 or more. And so we're 7 years away from when that was completed. This is an opportunity to move forward to begin fulfilling some of the recommendations that council charged this this consulting firm with in terms of this report. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emma Weir, and I have been sworn in. So, like a lot of people here, I agree with the proposed, not the proposed, but with the concept of having apartment living. I think it's a great way. I come from Europe. That's where a lot of people live. They don't own their own homes so much as live in apartments throughout the rest of the world. However, I do think it's a bit unacceptable that the proposed development is as large as it is. To me, there's two things, and I just heard these this evening. I have a big question about that open space being in reality only 15%. I think that's not very nice to live with 15% open space around you. Amongst that number, and also that's according to the code that you referred to, and that also that there's such little parking. You know, we're not in an urban environment here, so we don't have a lot of options with public transportation, and I think the reality is that most people have a car and are going to need to park it somewhere, and therefore, without public transportation, we need to have adequate parking spaces. I think the idea of 64 units is much more acceptable, and like somebody said earlier, that this isn't the last building that's going to be, hopefully, not the last infill building that's going to be turned into apartments. And I would urge the Planning Commission to really look at all of the proposals carefully. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? This is your last opportunity if anyone wants to speak. Okay, we're going to close the public hearing. Planning Commission. Any questions, thoughts? I do want to mention, okay, a couple things. The extension of North College. Our village manager, Johnny Burns, spoke at our last meeting, and that is something that he is looking into, the village is looking into. They need to find the money for that. So that is not something that we can actually consider right now. In terms of the traffic study, I am rather in agreement that when we had our work session, I said I wanted a traffic study before we did this. I am concerned that it has been put off until later, because I do feel like if we are saying certain places are the entries, exits, maybe that would change after the traffic study, so that concerns me. I was not aware of the tax abatement until I had read this, and I was a little surprised, 75% tax abatement for, 15 years? And I do want to ask about the tree island. Because of the number of spaces, are they required to have tree islands?
Potentially. So one aspect with the PUD application process is it is kind of tiered. We didn't get into what the requirements that are part of this final development plan include a lot more specific, detailed site plans. So those types of things, site plan review. So this is more of a conceptual concept plan to authorize rezoning. And with certain criteria outlined that they would come back later to this board with the final development plan application, should it get approved by council, with the details of the site plan, like laid out. So yeah, more landscaping-ish, like I would look at different standards. Some of those are from a different section of the code that weren't applicable to this portion of the process. That's how we're viewing it, the same thing with the traffic study, is that they are coming back to a public hearing with the detailed site plan. And so that's why we're saying let's do the rezoning first. They then can potentially go and get a loan. It's also tied to the money that they could get to support the project. We can't get, I'm not saying I know their financial aspects at all. I don't. They can maybe speak more to that, but in standard practice that you need the rezoning and the entitlements for density before you can get funding to support your project. Right now, it's actually zoned educational institution zone.
Yes.
It's in Antioch selling off the property that has been like a common problem. All of that property is zoned educational institutions set up primarily for huge dormitories and huge administrative staff buildings. So the zone is not crafted in a way to facilitate any type of redevelopment. So there's really nothing else they could do besides follow the PUD process if Antioch wants to sell off property, which they're doing. So anyways, just think that a lot of the details like the dumpster, the screening, the lights, landscaping in between parking spaces, that is going to come. It would be just the next step.
So screening will be part of it then? At that stage?
Yes, that code section is applicable for the next step.
Okay.
Okay. I think that in going through it, because we are required to make sure that this meets the zoning code. And I have some questions about that. I mentioned about the the open space. And so I'm wondering if we need to look at what in 2402, what Windsor states they meet. And for us then to agree or not to agree that yes, those are the, that it meets that. So there are 8 potential things, and they have to meet at least 3 of them. And let's see, I'm looking at what they have.
Yeah, I think referencing the page number on the staff report would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think it's on page, is it page 8?
It's 8.
Yeah.
So on page 8, it says, connectivity of open space with new or existing adjacent greenway or trail corridors. That's one thing they're saying. Then they're saying improvements to public streets or other public facilities that mitigate traffic and/or other development impacts. And 8, removal or renovation of blighted building sites or containment cleanup. Are we in agreement that those meet this? Any discussion? Are there any that you don't think it meets?
Okay, so all right, I think we're all, I mean, definitely number 8, removal or renovation of blighted buildings.
Yes.
That's great. This connectivity of open space to new or existing adjacent greenway or trail corridors, you know, we're not building a trail or anything, but they are having open space that's, you know, it's near the Glen, it's near the open space that's already on the Antioch campus.
And sidewalks.
And sidewalks.
Sidewalks, though, are a requirement.
Okay.
You can't,
Well,
I don't think you.
Yeah, but that's connectivity to the open space that connects you to everything outside of your
And
development.
the same thing, improvements to public streets and/or public facilities that mitigate traffic and/or development impacts. So the sidewalks, I mean, even just the idea that, you know, they're, I mean, I think it is an improvement to have an apartment building there. So,
I don't feel I can say yes to that one at this point, improvements to public streets or other public facilities, because I don't know what the traffic plan is, the traffic study, and so I'm concerned about that.
Well, or other development impacts. I don't quite know what that means. But actually, to me, that's similar to number 8.
Stormwater could be part of
Pardon?
that. Stormwater plan could be part of that.
And so you think that that is an improvement then?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't hear what you said.
stormwater.
Stormwater. Yeah, and actually, removing a blighted building certainly seems to be an improvement to it.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement about that.
But I mean, that, to me, that also applies to number 6, so but I might be off on that.
Okay, so we have.
That's an improvement.
I agree on 6.
We have 3. Are we in an agreement? Do you, yes, if you agree with all of these, no if you don't. All those who say yes, say yes.
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 Okay. Okay, then that one is, okay. Okay, then the next one we have is the modification.
Page 11.
Yeah, page 11. And so with this, they have to satisfy 4 criteria. And they have said, preserve the best natural features of the site. I don't agree with that at all. And in fact, on their page, let me find it, they state that they looked at on their page 24, they reviewed each parcel for existing features, including woods, streams, ponds, wetlands, and steep or graded slopes, and they found none of those. So the next one that they say is they commit at least 10% of dwellings to be permanently affordable. Yes, they have agreed to that. Employ low-impact design and/or other practices to manage stormwater and reduce off-site impacts of runoff. I can't answer that. Meg, can you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, as conditioned with the stormwater management plan, yes.
Okay.
I think that's my opinion, but I guess it is up to your discussion too.
And then the last one they have, employ practices in site layout, building construction, and materials that will result in a measurable reduction in energy consumption. So they say they're doing the
Green roof, or not the green roof, but
We talked about glass.
Cool roof.
Cool roof technology and
Yeah,
the
man.
separate units for.
and the heating system.
It's worlds better than anything.
So I could comment more on number one. as I'm
Okay.
thinking. That's a tricky one. That's interesting. In a sense, as you look at it, there really isn't anything there it's blighted, okay? So there isn't an existing natural feature to preserve, but by virtue of that they'll be planting some trees, they'll be creating some open space, that they'll be, in a sense, creating some, it's not the focus of the development, but the fact that they'll be creating some natural features there where there's perhaps hardly any, or perhaps no natural features except soil in the ground, that, in a sense, that's number one, what they're doing.
Okay, I don't agree with that, but that's fine. So are others in agreement with Gary?
I agree with Gary. There is, first and foremost, there is a blighted building that's a liability. It's unsafe. And there are probably, 3 or 4 silver maples there that need to come down and a couple of volunteer sycamore. So, I agree with Gary. One is almost a non-issue, what are the natural features except for
soil?
Well, I mean, like, to me, it's like I agree on one too with you guys because this is like if they mow the yard, that just improved it. 'Cause that's all that's out there. It's a blighted building and grass.
It doesn't say how much it has to improve.
I read the letters, but it's our turn to talk. Thank you, though.
Okay.
We can't
So
interrupt y'all, so.
Then let's vote on this. So those who believe they've met the 4 say yes?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? I'm opposed. I don't agree with the number 1, but that passes.
Okay.
Okay, then our next one is our density bonus. I believe that's the next one. And that's page 12 on the density bonus. So they have to do, let's see, is it at least 3 of them? And so they have the cool roof technology will be employed. We know that. Low-impact development, LID design principles will be employed to minimize stormwater runoff. And so, Meg, you're saying that's yes? Okay. And then the last one they have.
Quick question with that.
Yeah.
So the I'm looking in the code. So open space, what's included in open space is green roof, okay? So I'm assuming is cool roof technology considered green roof?
No, it is not a green roof.
Okay, just wondering.
Okay, and then the last one they had is a minimum of 25% open space will be dedicated within the development. And I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's like 15%. Is there another one that they could qualify for?
Well, the bicycle parking.
Yeah, number 8.
Okay.
Although I'm wondering, since the spec requires some bicycle parking, it just says beyond the required bike pathways. Additional comment. Well, 8's occurring.
And the sidewalks that they're going to be constructing.
Yeah.
Our code actually doesn't require sidewalks in every instance, just
Okay.
some instances.
Okay. So we're thinking that 8, if we're not sure about, so we think that there may, if we include 8, then there's 3 things.
Yes. We have 2, 6, and 8.
And
Is everybody in an agreement with that? Does anybody not agree with it?
I agree with 2, 6, and 8.
Agree.
Agree.
Okay, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Anyone opposed?
Any clarification?
And
Any clarification? Have to change.
I think that's the last one. So then we need to look at, then, it looks like they have met the requirements. Is that the last one we needed to look at?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If that's what you were wanting to do.
You were looking at me, Sean.
Well, I haven't gone through this, I mean, this way before, but that works. I think it's good to get everyone's thoughts. I think you could
Okay.
do a motion, someone could do a motion.
Okay.
I do want to remind you of the conditions of approval. Those are significant to me.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the,
I think first we want to make the motion to rezone.
okay.
Wait, hold on a second,
Hold on a
Judy's,
second.
let's get,
Oh.
yeah.
I don't think, isn't that what we need to do first?
Give me to the conditions.
And then we need to look at the conditions, yes. She has listed 5 conditions. Prior to the final development plan approval, a traffic impact study must be conducted. Any identified mitigation measures shall be incorporated into the final development plan by the applicant. 2, a minimum of 15% of the dwelling units shall be permanently affordable, defined as housing for households earning 80% or less of the area median income. 3, a 5-foot wide sidewalk shall be constructed along the property frontage on both President and Livermore Streets. 4, the development shall provide 48 bicycle parking spaces per specification identified in the Village Council 1264.02. 5, a stormwater management plan must be completed prior to final development plan approval in accordance with the requirements of the Village Code 1226.06. Was there anything else, Meg, you want to add? Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, not this time.
Okay.
Before we vote, could I ask Windsor a question, or is it just?
You may, yes, you may. We
On-
have a motion on the table.
On number 2, I broke down the numbers of 50%, and it was like 14.4. Would you guys round that down, or do we round that up to 15 on, as far as units would go?
Number 2 on the condition.
Yeah, it'd be 50% of the dwelling units shall be permanently affordable. When I broke the numbers, I was like, it was 14.4, yeah.
Yeah.
So we,
Round it up or down.
yeah, would you round up to,
How
would it
many
be 14 or would it be
units
15?
is that?
Not 50% units, it actually
Yeah, how
broke
many
down to
units is
14.4.
15% to you?
Yeah,
So probably, can you come up to the mic too, so we can,
So everyone has one in here?
yeah.
yeah, so this is my big bold move, I want to get another unit.
When we,
whole unit.
typically, it's been rounded up.
Okay.
That's what I
So
want to
you're
hear.
saying it would be 15?
It would be rounded up in this case, and I know there was some question about this. It is permanently affordable. So just to be clear, that's the commitment we've made since the beginning. I think there was a question as to that. I think it was clear from the conversation, but it is permanently affordable. Thank you.
15 minutes.
Okay, any other question?
Page 18.
Okay, then, do you want to make a motion to?
Susan, if we could also, it was excellent the way you went through all of the other standards, but could we also address the review standards of 125406?
Okay.
It's on page, that begins on page 18 of the staff report.
Okay.
So those are the review standards for approval of the PUD request. Each of the others were parts of it, right? The density and, and other subsections, but these are the main PUD reviews.
And it's 125406. And so I'm just pulling up my.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
There are a lot of, and they're addressed, they are each addressed in Meg's report. But if the commission could roll through those as well.
Okay, so it's A through, is it A through F?
No, keep going.
G.
H.
H, yeah.
Keep going.
H.
Yeah.
G, oh, okay, I see H, okay. Okay.
Yes, I don't, I'm not suggesting that we need to necessarily vote on each one. but
Okay,
If the commission could just spend some time discussing. each
Okay, then I'll just, we'll read through these, and if you have a problem with it, or if you have a question, want to discuss it. Okay, so the proposed development meets all of the following. The PUD will comply with standards, conditions, and requirements of this chapter. That's A. B, the PUD will promote the intent and purpose of this chapter. C, the proposed project will be compatible with adjacent uses of land, the natural environment, and the capacities of public service and facilities affected by the proposed project. D, the proposed project will be consistent with public health, safety, and welfare needs of the village. E, granting the PUD rezoning will result in a recognizable and substantial benefit to the ultimate users of the project and to the community with which would not otherwise be feasible or achievable under the conventional zoning districts.
Okay.
F, the PUD will not result in a significant increase in need for public services and facilities and will not place a significant burden upon the surrounding lands or the natural environment unless the resulting adverse effects are adequately provided for or mitigated by features of the PUD as approved. G, the PUD will be consistent with the village's comprehensive plan and vision, Yellow Springs and Miami Township. Specifically, the following planning principles shall be adhered to as applicable. Do you want me to read all of them? 1 through 8?
I don't know that that's necessary.
Okay.
I think, and if you want to read off the last one, then Susan,
And then H, the PUD will respect or enhance the established or planned character, use, and intensity of development within the area of the village where it is to be located.
And if anyone on the commission wants to weigh in on any of these specific standards, please feel free to do so. I'd say so far what we've heard tonight from the commission is a pretty clear analysis of subsection A, which is whether it complies with the standards, conditions, and requirements of this chapter. You took everyone through that pretty thoroughly, Susan. And there's been a lot of discussion about the comprehensive plan and you know, if you wanted to, any of these call out to you specifically that you want to address, please feel free, but thanks for reading that.
Any questions, any comments? Are you in agreement with all of these?
Yes, I am.
Carmen, are you?
Yes.
Gary?
Yeah.
Okay. Then let's vote. All those in favor that they are in agreement with all these, say yes.
Yes.
Okay, now we are ready for a motion, right?
Sure, you can start with a rezone.
Rezone.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you'll do the preliminary
All right.
plan.
Application to rezone.
Okay, so a motion to, for the application to rezone. Is that-
So you're recommending
I'm recommending-
council?
Recommending to council for the application to rezone,
To be rezoned to PUD.
be rezoned to PUD.
And I'll second.
Okay, Judy, roll call.
Abramski. Green.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Zaremski.
Yes.
Stiles.
Yes. Okay, then the last one is that a motion for the preliminary development of the PUD with the 5 conditions listed that I read before. I don't think I'll read them again if you're okay with that.
Yes, and which page of the staff report are they on?
And that is on page 20. And Windsor did state that their minimum of 15% of dwelling units would be 15 units. So I just moved that. We need a second.
I'll second.
And that's a motion for recommendation of approval of the preliminary development plan
Yes.
with these 5 conditions.
Yes.
What I'm wondering, though, before we do that, is I'm just wondering if we should discuss it all. Above the conditions is the whole, there's been a lot of discussion about parking. And I'm wondering if we should be talking about that before we move ahead to approve this. Because it's noted in the recommendation, but there's not a condition of approval associated with that. I'm not sure how that all plays out.
Their plan is that they're going to do 110 spaces, which I believe is 1.3 spaces.
128.
128.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, 128, and is that the 1.3?
That's correct.
And that's 1.3.
Okay, so there's 111 that are going to be off-street parking spaces on the property, but then there's I think it's 17 that are going to be on the street that are in the right-of-way. So I didn't include that in my numbers. I just included those dedicated off-street.
110.
Right.
I mean, actually, that's 111. That's a typo, I'm sorry.
Okay, 111.
So when it comes to the code and the requirements, that's what I based it off of. I didn't calculate it, the modification request off of the off-street parking spaces, because those don't count towards the code requirement. If that makes sense.
Okay.
But yeah, Susan's motion about rezoning and the motion about the preliminary development plan would approve those requested modifications. And like we thought, I guess that's was assumed because when she went through those criteria before, you were supportive of it, that basically saying you're supportive of those modifications to the dimensional standards, which includes height, parking, density, and the setback. I don't think you necessarily have to reference that in your motion, though. Is that the question? Should they reference it in the motion?
They certainly can.
Okay.
They certainly can. To clear, so what you're suggesting then, did we get a second on that motion?
Yes, we did.
And yeah, so that's why we're discussing it.
All right, why don't we amend it to be a recommendation for approval of the preliminary development plan, subject to the 5 conditions, and incorporating the modifications as addressed in the staff report. Does that get us there?
Okay, so we need to modify the motion, to amend the motion, to incorporate the modifications in the staff.
Why don't we just vote it? Why don't we just run through that vote and feel free to vote it down, make the motion again, make the second motion again, which will be the amended one. Make sense? It's cleaner from a procedural
Okay,
perspective.
then let's vote on this. Let's vote no, and then we'll.
All right, no.
All those opposed, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone in favor? Okay, so we'll submit a new motion. Why don't you state a new motion?
Okay, so the new motion is going to be a recommendation of approval of the preliminary development plan, including the 5 conditions as set forth in the staff report and the requested modifications as addressed in the staff report.
So moved.
I'll second.
Hiles, Green. Brown.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Zaremski.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Stiles.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to do anything else with this? At this
No,
time?
those are recommendations
We'll be
that will go
doing
to
things
village
later.
council.
Okay.
All right. Next application.
Okay, our next,
Susan, do you want to give everybody a chance to leave?
Kind of like spotlight.
do what?
Do you want to give everyone a chance to leave?
5-minute break.
Let's do a 5-minute break while people leave, and then we'll do our next business. And if people aren't leaving, that's okay. But
7:50 will start.
yes,
When are these going to come?
we'll restart at 7:50. Okay, we're back in session, and we are ready for our conditional use. Allison Moody, on behalf of the APR Investment LLC property owner, has submitted a conditional use application for sale of new vehicle parts use at 185 Yellow Springs Fairfield Road.
All right, thank you. So yeah, this is a conditional use application with a PUD modification submitted by Allison Moody, who is the applicant and owner. The property is located at 185 Yellow Springs Fairfield Road in Millworks, and is currently zoned PUD. So this property has gone through the same process in the past that Windsor's going through right now. Adjoining property owners were mailed a notice on May 27, 2025. Signs were posted on the property on May 30th, and a notice was published in the Yellow Springs newspaper on May 30th, 2025. The applicant would like to construct an 8,960 square foot building on vacant property and move a company called Nook Overland into the building, which sells non-motorized campers that fit into the bed of trucks. The vicinity map is on the screen there, and so you can see that it's the vacant portion of Millworks that's closest to Fairfield. The Village Zoning Code categorizes this use as sale of new and used vehicles, boats, farm implements, and similar vehicles and equipment. It's a long use. I'm going to refer to it in a shortened version throughout the meeting as sale of new and used vehicles, but it also includes those other components to the language as well, which is important because of what the product is. But anyways, it requires a conditional use and site plan approval from the Planning Commission. And the property went through the PUD process, and some of you may remember it, in 2022, which changed the zoning to PUD, but it left the underlying zoning of, I guess it created and allowed the underlying zoning of B2, I1, and some of the specific uses from the B1 zone. And in my staff report, I kind of detail all of that out. So then again, the use, sale of new and used vehicles, is a conditional use in the B2 zone. And those are the standards that I applied to it through the staff report, because it is a conditional use in the B2 zone, even though the property is zoned PUD. The Nook Overland Company commenced operations in the village in Building H at Millworks in the spring of 2024. And due to significant business growth and increased demand, the company now requires a larger facility and intends to relocate to the proposed new building upon its construction. About half of the structure, so about 4,000 square feet of the structure, will be used as a showroom, and the other half would be used for installation of the campers into the bed of the trucks, with approximately about 450 square feet being reserved for the Millworks campus property maintenance equipment. And then if Ben could show the image. I wanted just to share this because it was hard for me to imagine. It was hard for me to imagine what it was when saying it's non-motorized camper that fits into a truck, and I'm, image is worth 1,000 words, like I say. So there's various styles, there's sizes, they have some that pop up. They're really cool, but anyways, this is just generically what they look like. To say they don't have a motor. So the units are manufactured off-site too. That's a key component to this. There's no manufacturing here. It's just basically trucking them in and then installing them on personal vehicles. Let's see. So the business employs 4 employees, and they operate Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. They average approximately 15 customers a week and about 8 deliveries per week. The new building would be a metal pole barn with a maximum height of 18-foot eaves. They have 3 garage doors and several man doors. And the site plan includes creation of a new parking lot with 55 spaces. I think that might be the part that Allison's the most happy about, but she'll elaborate on. There's also going to be a screened garbage enclosure, a fire hydrant, a pedestrian pathway, outdoor patio, and landscaping included as part of this. The landscaping will be comprised of native plants and trees and primarily located along the bike trail, because this is along the bike trail, as you guys probably are aware. The total open space is 15%, and I wanted to point out that there are healthy, mature trees on the western side of the property that are going to remain as part of this plan. I did, and this is the piece that gets into like a little bit more of the details, because the Planning Commission is the final decision body on this. This is not a recommendation. So it is including a detailed site plan. So I did add a couple conditions related to some of the specifics of those sections. And the one I wanted to point out to the commissioners was that Code Section 1270.02C1 requires 1 tree for every 10 parking spaces. And right now, the site plan only had 2 trees on it. So I suggested a condition of approval for a total of 5 trees. I also suggested a condition to add a greenbelt or landscaping area to break up the row of parking spaces that are on the western side, because there's a long string of 20 parking spaces, and just in the middle of that, and to have a little landscape area to break it up. And then also, there's an existing building on the very southern edge of the property that Spencer Construction and Village Solar presently are located in, and that building would remain as part of this project. It will be enhanced in the exterior with the parking spaces, but I don't think there's any other planned improvements as part of this. The project complies with all the dimensional standards besides the side yard setback, and as part of this approval would be an exception to that. The side yard setback right now is required to be 30 feet, but it goes up, it's 20 feet. So there's a 10-foot deviation request through this approval. All utilities are presently exist to the site except for water service. So the existing utilities on the site will be reconfigured for the development in compliance with the village code. And then a new water main will be extended down Fairfield Road from Walnut Street to the site. And that would be at the expense of the applicant or the owner. I also had the Miami Township Fire and Rescue review the site plan. So Fire Chief Nate Ayers, he reviewed it, and he did request a condition of approval, which was included in the conditions that basically that the building plans include an FDC potentially, but address suppression and detection system as appropriate. So I'm recommending approval, but with 6 conditions that are in my staff report. Basically, I'll just summarize them. A stormwater mitigation plan is part of this in compliance with village code. The fire department review of the building plans, including suppression and detection system. Fixtures for lights need to be downward facing to reduce visual impacts. 5 drought tolerant trees, and then the green belt area in the parking that I was talking about, parking spaces I was talking about.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, did I say 5?
And then 6.
6, sorry. There's a 6th one. I had a 6 condition stating that this conditional use approval was solely for Nook Overland, just because it is a kind of a broad use where it says sale of new or used vehicles, farm implements, blah, blah, blah. I think conditional uses typically run with the land, and so with a new business could potentially come in with that use if we weren't clear that it was specifically just for these campers. And so I crafted a language for that, so that someone who was selling cars potentially couldn't relocate into here in the future without coming back through and getting approval.
The only question I had, I know that so we're doing a modification by the variance, is that correct?
Yeah, through this process, I had talked with Allison a little bit about the setback. Right now, the site plan shows the building being set back 20 feet from the property line on the eastern side. But we're conferring with our legal team.
sorry, our legal, with Amy.
There's our team.
She had said that we actually should do that through the planning commission tonight, since it's a PUD.
Okay, and so are we supposed to then look at the modification minimum requirements?
Oh, the standards.
We were looking at that, and the issue is, I find at least 3 of them that they could be, but our problem is this is really written for...
What page are you on?
She's just referring to the code. She's dove in head first into the code.
Yeah, the code. The code is what we're supposed to be, enforcing. So, and it is really written for residential. And it is the same as that we looked for with Windsor, that it says you're supposed to satisfy 4 and preserve the best natural features of the site. And there are some natural features there. You were talking about the trees and that, the native plants and that. And then create, improve, or maintain open space for residents, employees, visitors. So they're going to do that. They can't commit 10% for permanently affordable housing. You know that. They can't, I guess they don't provide a mix of residential types, no. Employ low-impact design. Are they employing low-impact design?
Through the stormwater management plan.
So it meets that, so we have 3. Employ practices in site layout, building, construction, and materials that will result in a measurable reduction in energy consumption. Does that sound like something you'd do?
Oh, yes, yeah. I believe it's rated R18, our installation will be.
Okay, great. And you're Allison. So, and that's just, I wanted to be sure that we're doing that.
Okay.
We're holding everybody's feet to the fire. And so, is everybody in agreement that they meet those 4?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When you're done with it.
Okay, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I have one comment, but then I have a couple questions that might actually be for Allison. The one comment is, I talked to Allison at some point, and this is outside of planning commission stuff, but in terms of it's not a factor with the zoning or anything, but the fact that she's going to be creating like a green space of sorts right on the bike trail there. I talked to her a little bit, that basically through Bike Yellow Springs, I'll give her information about possibilities of enhancing bike parking along there, because you're putting in a picnic area along a bike trail, and that would be a nice enhancement. But it doesn't have to do with any of the code. The 2 questions I have, one is, storm water. I know from there, when it rains.
I'm wondering if we should first let Allison do her presentation.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure.
So, go ahead, Allison.
Hi. I don't have a ton put together, but I can just give you some more information. My name is Allison Moody, representing APR Investments, and I was sworn in. This conversation started about 2 months ago when my tenants, Danny and Mike, told me that business is thriving and that they love where they're at, but they need more space. So my first idea was the CBE. You could have a huge camper dealership there with a ton of visibility. They thought about that, but because they've had so much positive feedback from their customers about having access to the bike trail so that when the campers are being installed, they can walk in town, ride their bikes in town, get something to eat. A lot of their customers have never been to Yellow Springs before, so they've really enjoyed exploring our town. So it makes a lot of sense to keep them in that area. A few things, I know you had questions about stormwater. So we're working with John Norton of Norton Engineering. He is one of the top stormwater experts in the state. He teaches continuing education for county engineers for stormwater. So we're going to tie into the existing stormwater system on Millworks. It's on the other parcel, but it's kind of in front of the Quonset hut, between the Quonset hut and the bike trail. We're also adding a pollinator garden that's going to have footpaths to go through to help people connect to the bike trail. And there is going to be a patio on the bike trail, which I think will be nice. They've discussed maybe having some drinks for sale, like bottles of water or protein drinks. I think it'd be a great option for people who are coming through town to have a place to rest, and that's not associated with alcohol, because a lot of people don't want to be around that. just to be able to enjoy the bike trail and rest, and then there'll be a pollinator garden. Also, we're going to be almost doubling our parking capacity for the entire complex. As we all know, parking is desperately needed in the central business district and adjacent areas. I'm happy to absorb some of the parking where people come to town strictly to access the bike trail, so I'm happy to absorb some of that from maybe some of the downtown parking lots.
I love your native garden, and it sounds like it may be similar to what we do at the Women's Park.
Yeah.
And you might want to consult with some of us because we've been working on that for years.
I plan to. Yeah. That would be a dream to replicate something like that.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
And I love her jacket.
Oh, yeah.
We're wearing the same jacket.
Oh, yeah. I think your hair looks good.
Okay. Gary, did you have questions then?
Yeah, I was wondering about the stormwater, because that road, when it rains, that road is almost a river.
Right.
And so this will resolve that a little bit?
It will resolve that. We're also building a retaining wall out of gabion cages, which
Okay.
I've always personally just really loved.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in Colorado, and you see those along the highways. Gabion cages are like steel wired cages that have either big rocks or gravel in them.
Yeah.
And a reason that they're so efficient in a place like this is because it allows water to flow through and actually helps clean the water as it goes through.
Yeah.
Also, like freeze and thaw cycles, the rocks can move within the cages, so they're really eco-friendly, and it's going to help a lot of that water flow.
Yeah. The other thing I was wondering about, just making sure you're aware of, so the northern part of that parcel is there was a lot of building debris just dumped down in there. So whenever you're going to build something else, who knows how deep of pilings you're going to need to be able to get down to a secure...
Right, yeah, and we have cleaned a lot of that up. That was left by a former tenant before I owned the property. But
Yeah.
we've already done a lot of cleanup. And as far as native
But I'm
plants...
thinking underground.
Oh, right.
is-
Yeah, the bedrock's pretty high right there, so...
Pardon?
The bedrock is pretty high right there.
Okay.
And as far as native plants, there's a lot of honeysuckle that we'll be taking out. We're keeping the mature trees. Along that north end has been like poison hemlock and other invasive, dangerous plants that are an eyesore, are difficult to maintain because they're on that hill. The gabion wall will solve that problem.
Any other questions for Allison? Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, then, are we at the point where we're ready for a public hearing?
Sure.
Okay.
Coming up.
We will open the public hearing. Anybody who wants to speak, tell us your name. If you've been sworn in, if you haven't been, we'll swear you in. You've been waiting all evening.
Yeah, we just moved here like 6 months ago, so this was something to.
Sorry to punish you like that.
First time, so Ron Mays, I have not been sworn in.
Okay. Then do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before this board?
I do.
Great, thank
And
you.
I've almost heard enough, I could have recited it. We'll be really neighbors, actually. We bought down Chittister's house on the east side of the property, so we'll keep an eye on your lot, make sure everything's all right. And the only question I have is the parking lot, is this going to be open in the evenings late for anybody to come in and park in? I'm thinking weekend, the couple of brewery.
We're having a hard time hearing you. Need to speak this way,
Okay.
sorry.
Just the questions I have is the parking lot, is it going to be, I heard it's going to be on the west side, so it'll be facing where the Nook is now, on that side of the lot?
Correct.
Okay, and then is that parking lot going to be open to all patrons 24/7 for, late night people coming in and out, in case a lot of times people sit in parking lots and turn their radios up pretty loud over there. So I didn't know if it was going to, and then the overhead lighting, is it going to be like super bright at night, or is it just going to be LEDs, and is it going to be broadcasting how much light it is? I'm sure it's something of that nature. And then on the east side there, facing the bike trail, that'll be, I hear green space and a garden, that'll be something of that nature. So just the concerns, because we're literally, I think, the only people, besides the people across, there's really nobody across from, there's all woods over there, so. But we kind of watch the solar place to make sure, nothing that's really right outside of our window. So it sounds wonderful. Congratulations on the expansion. That's good news. So we're glad to see that. So those are just only concerns that we would have being so close to the property. So.
Okay, thank you. So do we know about the lighting? Allison, do you want to
Yeah, all lighting will be downward, and they'll be on buildings. Nothing will really be facing you. We did talk about maybe having string lights on the patio just to make it look cute, but we can put those on timers to make sure that they're not on late at night. And if there's any issues or concerns, please feel free to reach out directly. I'd be happy to work with you. And we've worked with the neighbors on that end before, as on our mowing schedule. One of them, the only morning they could sleep in was Sunday morning, so we actually rearranged our mowing schedule to accommodate them. Wow. So, yeah, we're happy to do that.
Any other public comments? I should have done that first, and then if there aren't any other comments, then we'll close the public hearing. Other questions, anything?
I don't have any. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
So you guys are doing this, they're doing what they're wanting to do, they're already doing it on site. So, but then now they want to have a building to do what they're already doing. So
No. Moving to a different, it'll be a new building for them.
They're growing.
But
A larger building
But like,
and a showroom.
so are we having to give them like permission to make automotive parts there? No, that's already, there's just want to put a building.
They just assemble.
Okay.
I think clarification.
Yeah, I think it helped if we hear from
So
Allison,
originally,
so
we considered the use, Nook, me, Meg, we considered the use to be sales of vehicle parts and accessories.
Yeah.
Because they're boxes that go on a car, they don't have motors,
Yeah.
wheels, or axles. We found out within the first year of their operations, when they sold their first one to an Ohio resident, that they have to register the box, the camper, as a motor vehicle. So that changed their use. It was just a misunderstanding on our end, because I guess Ohio is one of only a few states that does consider these to be motor vehicles.
Because
It's
we're
not something that any of us,
Even though there's no motor in it, huh?
right.
Or wheels.
Or wheels. So that was our confusion.
I can comment on that. So really,
And if you'll introduce yourself.
my name's Mike. I co-own Nook Overland with my wife Danny, and I was sworn in. So it's really just because when we have to file for a title for somebody that is financing the camper, the dealership has to do that. And in order for me to title the camper with the state, I need a dealership number. So if a customer pays out of cash, I know as an Ohio resident, they can just take the paperwork I give them and go title it themselves. But whenever like a credit union or something like that's financing it, they require us dealers to actually go file this paperwork. So it was something that we didn't experience for the first 6 months until we sold to an Ohio resident, because we do have a lot of out-of-state people coming to pick up.
So that's what makes it a motor vehicle?
Yes.
Is because you're a motor vehicle dealer?
It's because the registrar for titling requires me to be a motor vehicle dealer to register something that's new. And the
Okay.
financial companies are requiring me to title it rather than the customer titling it.
Okay.
So it's really weird, and it took me 3 to 4 months of talking to the state of Ohio to get that answer out of them, and that's what we landed on.
Okay.
But you're just making
We're not even
the cap.
We're not even making them. We're just dropping them in the
You're
back
just
of the
selling the
truck.
cap.
Correct.
I'm just curious, if you got to go through all that rigmarole, does the cap have an independent VIN?
Yes, it does. It's a 6-digit VIN, so that also confuses people. It's not 19 digits like a regular vehicle.
Yeah.
But it's very unique for Ohio to have to title this.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And let me clarify, are we approving this to go to the council? Or so we are doing the final approval?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, then, are any other questions? Are we ready to do a motion? Who would like to move?
I'll move that we, what are we approving the proposal?
The conditional
with the
use.
conditions identified?
Approve the conditional use and the major modification to the PUD.
Yeah, what she said.
And we want the conditions that Meg mentioned, the 6 conditions.
Yeah, the 6, yeah.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
All right.
Kronsky. Green.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Zaremski.
Yes.
Stiles.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Congratulations.
All right, happy motoring.
Okay, I guess we don't have any other business. Anything that we're looking at for next month?
Yeah, potentially a couple more applications. Yes.
What kind of conditional use?
Yeah, conditional use, potentially for 545 Dayton, but I need to talk more with our legal team. One other, what am I, do you remember? Why am I spacing? There's one other too, I can't.
We might have some adjustments to the zoning for the bike parking.
Yeah, so Gary pointed out some adjustments to the bike parking, and I think, I told him we could get to that in a couple months, potentially when I'm a little bit more freed up with my time.
Yeah.
We did have on one of our goals for a couple of the commissioners to talk about TGL, and Gary's done a lot of research, and we're tentatively thinking August for that.
Okay.
August TGL discussion.
Yeah.
But it's all going to depend on workload and applications.
And we also needed Gavin to do his report on the council's work session.
Right.
Because they covered things that we were talking about.
Right.
And so can we put him on the agenda for the next time? Gavin, Judy? Okay. If there's nothing else, then I move we adjourn.
Second mine, sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Okay.
We are adjourned.